Time goes by, years and decades. She comes, she goes, but her story remains so. She is you, I, and the others. She belongs to herself and not another. She is whole, complete, and absolute, for she is resolute. Hello and welcome to She is Resolute. I'm your host Suvarna, and our endeavor on this show is to showcase conversations of grit and growth for the determined modern woman willing to take complete ownership of her life and her mindset. Our attempt is to bring to the fore actionable information on personal development through discussions with experts and personalities who have, in one way or another, proven that they too are resolute. So enjoy the episode and please do like, share, and subscribe. Our brain weighs less than 2 kilos, yet it is the seat of awareness, consciousness, intelligence, our senses, and it also controls our body movement and behavior. This complex yet fascinating organ contains about 100 billion neurons and probably more than 100 trillions of connections. Our brain, the crowning glory of human evolution, essentially is the source of all the qualities that define our personal universe. Today, I have with me an eminent personality in the field of neurology in India. It's an absolute honor and privilege to speak with Dr. M.V. Padma, Head of Department of Neurology at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. Dr. Padma is the recipient of one of the highest civilian honors in India, the prestigious Padma Shri Award in 2016 by the Government of India for her massive contributions to her field. Her primary area of expertise in the field of neurology is in stroke, vascular dementia, and multiple sclerosis. Well, an hour is not enough to share with you all her credentials. Dr. Padma, it's a privilege to have you on She is Resolute. Thank you so much, Doctor. I'll start from the very beginning. As a child, what influenced or motivated you to become a doctor and, more importantly, think of brain sciences or neurology as a profession?
Thank you, Suvarna. You keep saying resolute, and I was wondering, here is a young, such a beautiful little girl doing this. I think you are, en route to that than me. I have one foot in the grave. So, well, anyway, so as you say, Suvarna, why brain? Well, I guess it is the final frontier, isn't it? There's so much that we still don't know. When I joined neurology after doing the MD in general medicine, and I gave my exam, that is the DM, and I thought I knew everything. I mean, I've done the whatever was required to pass the exam. So I read the textbooks, I read the latest journals. So, well, there it is. So I knew everything. And then I guess 3 decades later, much beyond that, in fact, and now I feel that I know so much less than what I believed I knew. And that this is truly the final frontier. And I guess just like, a navigation through the space, and we keep, it's a new normal every single day that you're on the learning curve, and that's what's happening. We're rewriting the neuroanatomy, we're rewriting the neurophysiology. And the Gray's Anatomy, which has been the sort of a Bible for the human anatomy, when it concerns the brain and the nervous system, and with the humongous advances in the technological field, it seems that we need to relearn the anatomy. So truly, this is where I guess the buck stops. And therefore, this has been fascinating in the sense that you in a space journey, that there's a famous quote from Star Trek. I don't think you were born there, but there was this thing then that they said where no man has gone before. So it's like this is a voyage into the sciences where no man has gone before. So voyaging into it is extremely exciting. And the other thing, you always need to go to a profession which remains with you for your entire life because you have an aptitude and you love doing it. So, right. And that's, I guess, the reason why I chose neurosciences rather than any other field which is there more established. But I must say that in the last couple of decades, there's so much which has happened now that it is no longer an armchair
Right.
kind of a speciality where you dissect everything out and oh, I know what is wrong, and then do precious little after that. It's no longer that kind of a field. So there's so much more happening. It's exciting. So that's the reason I chose that.
I'm so glad that you did, because it reassures people like us to know that a mind of your caliber is in this field. And when I talk about top achievers in your field, someone like you is so inspiring to women in India, including myself. And a journey as rich like yours must have had its shares of trials and tribulations. Can you please share with us what your hardships or challenges, what are the types of hardships and challenges that you faced, and specifically those that tested your courage and your endurance and your resolve?
Well, for a woman to grow in any field as such, we have some common challenges, in the sense that though I must say that over time, these no longer probably are true anymore, because you have iconic figures in almost every field, and we talk more of gender equality rather than saying that it's a woman first or a man first. It's more of gender equality. So when you're talking about a challenge, it may be to either gender. So I think we're slowly coming to a stage where it really should not say that it's always a woman first or a man first, and that there is a fairer sex or someone who's a weaker sex. So that those terms probably no longer hold true. Said that, though, in a developing world, and even probably in a developed world, we have our own issues and individualistic issues which you need to overcome. And very recently, in the International Women's Day, there was a program on Doordarshan, and some people were called, and I had the privilege of interacting with young ones and not so young ones who made marks, while someone is a biker, and someone has scaled mountains, and someone has gone on to certain professions which are considered to be a taboo in certain aspects in society, and made it so big. So and listening to all of them, it is this, that one is you will face challenges, whether it is a boy or a girl. Yes, as a girl, probably in a society which is still evolving, maybe a little more in certain sections, I won't say across the board. So what did I have it? Let me say that what were the advantages that I had were that my mother, who's no longer with me now, but she was a doctor. And so an educated parentage helps in terms of realizing your dream. So no one said that I should, give more importance to certain aspects in a woman's life, like settling down and, getting into it, and a certain age for bearing children or whatever it is. Though I did go through all those motions but they were not deterring facts that it would not it would limit your growth. So in general, what happens to a woman is, one is an educational part of it. We still have in the society where there is a disparagement, and you keep talking about it. It's not rampant, but it is still existed. That's one. So the opportunities which are given, it's no rocket science and it's off beaten that it is the track that people go through when they're talking of limitations, that there are the opportunities are less, which I didn't have that kind of a problem. The other is, trying to settle down, so that, after a certain age, you do need to get married, and you do need to have a child on board, because that's the norm, right? So I did go through those motions, but the fact is that who you marry is also important, because the person who comes into your life, the partner, whether it is a wife or a husband, is an extremely important person in your growth. So quickly you need to know that, is that my soul partner? And if it is a soul partner, then there are only two things which give you ultimately satisfaction and peace in life. That is, you need a purpose in life. Okay, you need, why are you alive? You need a purpose, and the other you need is a person to share. And I
Yes.
strongly believe these are the two basic tenets: a purpose in your life and a person to share. And if that person to share is your soul partner, you're blessed. And that person actually becomes the wind beneath your wings. So for a woman, that becomes an extremely, extremely important aspect. And that again said, then, you also have to believe in yourself that you are not weak, and you don't need to cling on, and also believe that you are entitled or you deserve to be given a certain kind of a status because you're expected to be weak. You believe that you are equal, so you take up equal responsibilities and equal things, and that is what medicine provides to you, Suvarna.
Yeah.
It provides to you that, there in this, it is not a woman or a man. You're dealing with a patient, you better deal with it as a doctor should. It is no matter what. During my residency, they were, when we were being trained as a neurologist, we also needed to go and see neurosurgical patients. And that in those days, trauma was one big thing which came into the neurosurgery integrated, and now it's a little separate. And there, I was sometimes asked to go see a neurosurgical patient, trauma patient, head injury patient. They're huge, bulky patients from the road traffic accident. They're coming and they're on a trolley. And you're here, and you look little, you look frail, and then you have to don that hat of, and you have to do that because the life is in your hands. There you can't say that, oh, I'm so frail, I'm a woman, I can't do that. So you see, it also depends on you, right? So there you need to bring forth your inner strength, and believe me, what you believe, you can do it. So that is one of the things that we talked about on 8th March, just a week ago, but less than, a little more than a week ago, where we say that you have to dream big. There's nothing like, what can stop you. So the travails, as you say, Suvarna, has been that several challenges which can come to a woman, and I'm sure even you have faced, probably, though you're much, you probably 1/3 of my age, you're much littler, but these challenges come in various ways, in terms of security, in terms of how society looks at you, and how in terms of there would be times, this is interesting in those, this is probably a different generation, when I was actually training to be a doctor, and I was doing my MD medicine in AIIMS. And in the ward that I was on rounds, I was on duty, and at 9-10, we a couple of hours, we are busily, we're going up and down, and then I heard one elderly gentleman calling out, sister. So I turned back, and then he said, "Idhar aao." So I went to him, and he said, "Doctor ko bulao, jaldi bulao." And I was a doctor. So then I said, okay. Then I looked at him, and I tried to do whatever I could, and I did. And then he would still say, "ठीक है, मैं ठीक हूँ, पर अब doctor को तो बुलाओ." And the doctor, the male doctor, was actually my junior resident. So that boy came, and he was so embarrassed because he would address him as a Dr. Saab, and he would insist on addressing me as the nurse. So this is a mindset. This has changed. I'm sure it's changed, but these are the things which you evolve, and there was no point getting angry there. He was an old man. He was coming from a particular strata who wouldn't even understand that a woman can be a doctor. So this is a society we are evolving. So, but if you take very great offense, oh, how dare he do that? But it is, you deal with it, and that person, he's an old man. He blessed me later on because his pain was relieved. But so this is a little anecdote I told you, but the travel, Suvarna, instead of getting into specifics, will be how the society looks at you, and what they feel should be your priorities. You have your own priorities. So you should believe in yourself and believe in what would make you happy. And in that, I guess, even those professions which may be chosen for you by, like a doctor, everybody said, oh, I should take gynecology. That is the best specialty for you because you're a woman. So I said, with all due credence, I love gynecologists. They're great friends, but I don't have an aptitude. I'm not going to be happy being a gynecologist. Choose something else. If a girl wants to be, now I have residents who are neurosurgeons. They are young, beautiful girls as neurosurgeons, and more part of it, I feel so proud looking at them. So therefore, believe in yourself. What makes you happy? Choose what makes you happy. And if that is your forte, go at it. You have the power, you can do it. Okay. That's right.
Every single thing you said was so beautiful, ma'am, because I think most of the times we sort of get in our way of our convictions and beliefs. The first thing to do is to get out of your way. You need to get out of your way and then believe in the best that you can achieve, and then eventually just keep at it. I think everything that you spoke about, having a purpose, having a partner who's right for you, and for that matter, having belief in yourself, that requires a lot of work on yourself, and you need to start doing that work also. It's not going to fall on your lap. All these three things require a little bit of effort. So I believe I completely resonate with everything that you said. And I do want to understand now, you chaired a huge department, you have patients, you teach, you have administrative and academic responsibilities, you're involved in research, you head many apex bodies, and you're also a writer. How do you manage your time? I'm curious to know that what are your habits and routines that help you in going through the motions of an extremely busy day?
Yeah, so Suvarna, yeah, actually, I don't know. I don't think I'm unique at all. There are scores of people who do this. And in fact, I do believe that in journalism, in fact, I think they have crazy hours, as crazy as any medical profession has. You see, there are two things that's happening in the world today. One is a race, which is, you can call it a rat race or a mouse race or whatever race you have. It's classically a rat race. And that you need to be in it. Otherwise, if you fall out of the race, then you are gone. The other issue which is happening is that in doing so, you're multitasking. And the one which is becoming, because the time only has 24 hours. So one which is happily compromised is sleep. And
Yes.
the sleep is essentially a commodity which can be easily dispensed with. Since in those 24 hours, who cares about 8 hours anyhow? So, and then we can have it in bits and pieces and have micro sleeps in the middle. So, and this is happening more often to the youngsters. And I do believe young people like you, Suvarna, are the ones who are actually at jeopardy in ways more than one, because this is a generation which is actually at the peak. Because what's happening progressively is that there is a shift to the left. Like, you have more and more young achievers, and in so doing that, you have achievement happening in younger age. And then our life expectancy is also growing higher. So you have more people starting to achieve very young and going to live longer and live longer. So there is a big lifespan where the achievements are starting at very, very young. And there is a big race which starts with the schooling, with our the grades and percentages and the entrances, and cracking them and conforming to what is the society's definition of being successful. So that is also being thrust upon things, and also the ambitions which are happening for reasons more than one. And as you believe it's a global village, the world is a global village, so you're exposed to so many things. Obviously your aspirations are also much, much more. Said that though, when you're multitasking, as I said, the casualty is, one is sleep, the other is that you compromise a lot of what is called as the activities which would keep up your mental health. So the mental health is another one which gets happily buried under the carpet, and little is talked about it, about your own emotions and how happy you are at the end of the day. So a lot of people have insomnia, and the things that you have, because there is no happiness and there is no satisfaction. Now, I know these things to a certain extent, and I'm not saying that I stick to a protocol, or I'm a know-it-all person, so I have the best lifestyle. No, in fact, I don't think any one of us have a great lifestyle. So what is described in books is very difficult to practice. When we talk about diet, we keep saying that you take 3-4 proportions of fruit, you take vegetables, and you take this. Fruits are so damn expensive, seriously. And you keep saying that, you take fruits, you take vegetables, and less of dairy. It's easy to say these, to recommend, to profess, but I think it's much difficult to practice, and more importantly, sustainability and being compliant about a particular lifestyle. So
100.
I start my day pretty early. I'm an early riser, but I believe that the world is basically divided into what are called as larks and owls. There is no problem in that. Some are larks, so they get up early, they're morning people, and by the time it is 10 o'clock, they hit the bed. And then there are owls who are, the best achievement is in the night. So there's nothing wrong in that. But you should know whether you're a lark or an owl. There are certain things wherein you can't be an owl, because conventionally the human brain is not an owl brain. So, I'm not saying we are a bird brain either, but conventionally we are used to the day being awake and night being our sleep time. But because of the modern world, things have changed. So I'm a lark. I wake up by 4:30 in the morning. Then I do have certain issues which I deal with. I have a lot of dogs, a lot of cats in the house. I deal with their food, and my husband also wakes up very early, and we have these, and I have an old parent at home, my father, and there are some things I do. I try and do a 30-minute a brisk walk every day. That is my me time. So one is, Suvarna, I think you need to catch a me time sometime. And the me time best is spent in, I'm not saying you go hit the gym. And the gym, I feel sometimes is one of those paradoxes in life, because I see people who drive a car for 2 kilometers and take a lift for 2 floors, and then do the gym, and then do the same thing back. So it is again a attitude. So it's essentially, if you have stairs and you have a lift, you try and take the stairs, unless you have osteoarthritis of the knees. So it is again a choice. So I do 30-minute walk in the morning, which is also me time. And in the morning walk, in front of the rising sun, it's said that the morning rays are good, and they do stimulate serotonin, which is one of the good ones to have, to a feel good neurotransmitter. It's a natural way of probably, getting prepared to a day with something positive. And yes, I'm also the chief of the center now. I do have the admin thing, which is a nice learning experience, because it's more often than not, settling down, the ruffled feathers. And the thing is, Suvarna, is to make a team and make the team grow, because there's no one bad and no one good. It is human nature for people to behave in a certain way. You need to deal with empathy, sympathy, and as well as, try that nobody gets harmed, including yourself. But at the same time, maintain a balance. And for that, you also need equanimity of your own emotions. If you lose that equanimity and you have a knee-jerk reaction to any situation, that is going to backfire. And but I guess that comes out of just living longer in the world with age and maturity. But that needs to be learned. So that's something which I do, and I give power to the team to grow. When the team grows, when the center grows, when the hospital grows, you're growing along with it. You need to have that thing and not have a crab. Have you heard of a crab behavior?
I haven't, ma'am.
Then I can explain to you.
Please do. Please do. We'd love to hear it.
So the crab behavior is, I believe, there is this, I've heard somewhere, like, you have an open tank, and you leave a lot of crabs in that, and the crabs tries to crawl out, right? So the crab behavior is, it's an open top. So the crab is trying to crawl out. The second crab, which is coming up behind, grabs the legs of the first crab and brings it down. So nobody can climb out. Now that's the crab behavior. But if in a team, all the crabs can come out, right? But if there is a crab kind of behavior, you're not allowing the other person to go up, thinking the other person will go up and what will happen to me. So that kind of a behavior is sometimes seen in organizations, which is what which I try to avoid. And I try to do that in an admin level so that everybody grows and everybody has equal opportunity, and identify the merit, give it the boost so that they can grow.
Hats off to you, ma'am, because it is 10 to 12 hours is a busy day for some people, a few days of the week who are in mainstream professions, so to speak. But doing a regular 10 to 12 hours is actually someone you have to be very, very scheduled in what you're doing and very, very prepared in what you're doing. And I really admire that. One of the main takeaways from the things that I would like to inculcate in my routine would be to go for a walk in the morning and absorb the sunlight then, because it helps with the production of serotonin. I think that's information that's gold, because most of the mental health issues, or a broad spectrum of the mental health issues, is now because of the issues related to serotonin. So if we can get that, if there's a way that we can manage to do that ourselves with our actions, that's brilliant. So that's a very, very good takeaway that I would also like to inculcate. I'll come to your specialty now, ma'am. You deal with stroke. For a layperson, could you please explain what stroke is? What would be the warning signals, and what are the behaviors and factors that increase the risk of stroke?
So stroke, Suvarna, is in a layman term, it's been called a brain attack. Mm-hmm. So, brain, is a supercomputer. Well, that's again, something which you're asking me questions and I'm assimilating what you asked, and I formulate what I should, answer, what are the right words and the gestures and everything, which we take it for granted. Every action in our life that we're doing, we are alive, we are conscious, and we're thinking, we're talking, we're walking, everything, the actions or the life as such we take for granted is being commanded by the brain. So every single, little millimeter in the brain is overheading those functions, and it's the command center. So, and there is a blood supply which is going constantly to this organ, which you rightly said, it's weighing just around 2 kilograms. And that is it has no storehouse. So unlike a liver, unlike other organs in the body where there is a storage space, brain has nothing to store. So it needs a constant and blood supply, which supplies the oxygen and glucose, which are essential to keep it ticking. And when such a blood supply has been compromised, either by a clot in the blood vessel, or the blood vessel ruptures, so there is bleeding, and therefore there is no blood supply going to wherever it needs to go, then that area of the brain quickly dies. So it's just like this, like if somebody is getting strangulated, somebody is, catches hold of someone's neck, and you see within 3 minutes, the person loses consciousness because there's no oxygen going there. So it is within minutes that the area will start getting destroyed, and it may die if we don't again supply the blood back immediately. So that's a basic tenet, and the brain attack is where such a thing has happened. Therefore, the function which that part of the brain is overseeing is suddenly altered or lost. So there would be a sudden loss of consciousness if that area of the brain, which is in the middle of the brain, which is called the brainstem, gets affected, or there would be sudden loss of vision. There could be sudden loss of speech. They could be, suddenly the angle of the mouth is altered, it is deviated, and there is loss of power in one hand and one leg, which is a classical presentation, what is called as hemiparesis, pakshagat, lakwa, whatever you call that. Sudden loss of a balance, sudden splitting headache like you've never had. Headache is something which is very common. Everybody, I believe everybody who has a head has a headache. But this is a headache which you've never experienced before. There could be, an epileptic attack. The sudden, sensation of revolving or something called vertigo with intense vomiting, and they can't walk. Several varieties of what is defined as suddenness of the whole thing.
I see.
Happens in minutes. The second is altered function. Okay, so unlike a heart attack, which is where there is sudden chest pain with sweating, okay, The presentation of brain attack is protean because it depends upon which part of the brain is overseeing which function. So in this, we have a public mnemonic called FAST, F-A-S-T, which we've also changed to BFAST, B-E-F-A-S-T. Now, essentially means B is for balance, sudden loss of balance. E is for eye, sudden loss of vision. F is face, where there is sudden, muh teda ho gaya, the sudden deviation of the angle of the mouth. A is when you ask them to raise their arms and one arm falls down. S is speech. That is, there's an alteration speech. He can't understand what you're saying, or he's talking gibberish, or he's not, there's no word output at all. And T is time. Time is that time is brain. Just like time is heart muscle, time is brain. So BFAST is a mnemonic which has been translated to several Indian languages as well. And this is actually a part of our awareness program for public, that if this happens, then rush to an emergency. And stroke is an emergency, and you need to get the blood restored back, which is the most common cause of stroke, is more of a blood clot rather than blood vessel rupture, called hemorrhagic stroke. So this becomes an absolutely essential thing. So that's how you recognize a stroke. That is stroke. And what causes stroke, Suvarna, is what is very, very important, because just as we have risk factors which are non-modifiable, okay? Now, these are not something which you and I can do anything, and that is age. Age, as you grow older, you have more propensity, but we now have stroke in young people, 25, 30, 35, 40 are having strokes, just like they're having young heart attacks. And this is very, very extremely, we are very worried about it. It's extremely worrisome, especially in India. And in fact, India, we've seen that stroke in young accounts for almost 30% of all our strokes. And believe me, it is raining strokes in India. India is, take away the COVID pandemic, but it is said that every 20 seconds there is a stroke in India, and every 2 minutes somebody is dying of a stroke in India. And this is the Indian Council of Medical Research statistics. So therefore, when we're looking at a stroke pandemic, or, forget about the COVID pandemic, we're looking at the non-communicable disorders in which stroke, is very high on the list, along with cancer and heart attacks. This aspect, 30% of all that is happening in young. But anyway, age is something you can't do. There is a race, there is an ethnicity, and there are some genetic factors. You can't do anything about it. You can't choose your parents and be born to them. So forget it. Correct. But there is a whole host of modifiable where you have a role to play. And in that, this most important risk factor is blood pressure. In fact, when I talk to people, I would say the number 1 risk factor is hypertension, number 2 risk factor is hypertension, number 3 is risk factors. This is so important. So high blood pressure is seen now in 26% of Indian population. So that's 1 in 3, and it's growing for reasons more than one. So that's, you have young hypertensives, and this is something which you should be extremely careful about. Number 2 is diabetes. Number 3 is heart disease. Number 4 is bad cholesterol, bad fats in the body. But the last ones are very, very something which is unfortunately, which needs a lot of emphasis, and that is smoking and obesity and lack of physical activity. Beyond this, you have a whole host of other things, but that's not important, whether it's infections and dissections and so on and so forth. What is controllable are these. Like if somebody, don't smoke ever. You don't need an excuse to smoke. Number 2 is, to me, don't drink alcohol. No J-shaped curves. Cardiologists will say red wine, white wine. I don't care. I don't, in fact, say that you drink alcohol. Because you see, the biggest myth we have is that you can control the brain.
Yes.
That is the biggest myth. You can't control the brain. Believe me, Suvarna, that is the biggest thing that, you think you can, you can't. This is really complex, and this is something you better be aware and give it respect. Don't think you can do it. So I don't believe that you should start alcohol. So people who don't take alcohol, stay away. For drinking alcohol, stop it. To me, that's the way it is. So besides the lifestyle thing, obesity and physical activity, again, it is a right choice. The choice is yours. The diet, physical activity, you don't need to go spend hundreds of rupees, I shouldn't say, I guess thousands of rupees and find a dietitian and start on a dietic regime. No, you don't. The healthy choices would help you. And physical activity, again, you don't need to feel that, oh, I don't have money, otherwise I would have gone to the gym. No, it's again your choice. Take
Yes.
stairs when you have a choice. Don't take the lift. Unless you have a physical disability, you walk. Don't take a car if you can help it. You cycle if it is not too dangerous on those kind
Yeah.
of roads. It's actually a choice. Make it a habit that, if you have a break, even in your office hours, to walk. And in your
Yeah.
home, walk around your neighborhood. So it's a choice. Instead of sitting in front of a television and watching your favorite soap opera, if you have that time, take a walk. So it is
Yeah.
a choice that you can employ. And apart from that, if there is a life, if there is a familial, you know, history of a heart attack or a stroke, or there are blood pressure and diabetes, when you hit at 30 years of age, go and get your blood pressure checked. Go and get a blood sugar done. And if there is a problem, go to a doctor. And believe me, persist with that doctoring thing, because on your own, don't take things into your hand. There are a lot of people who say that BP, I've taken the medicine, BP is under control. Now, why should I continue to take the blood pressure drug? You stop it. The BP is a silent killer. So don't do
Yeah.
that. So you take the advice. It is possible you may be off the medication if your lifestyle has improved, but take the consultation and be careful about the risk factor control. You control your risk factors, good lifestyle. I don't think you will have a problem with heart attack or a stroke. More importantly, you probably can prevent dementia from setting in. And that's one of those biggest things that all of us are scared about. As you age, oh my God, I may be demented. I may be having a memory loss. So those things you probably can prevent by just doing these simple things and being compliant and persistent with those.
It's so incredible that you speak about this, because we're in a generation where there's information overload, right? Everybody's an expert. Google is an expert on brain health now, and you get multiple sources of information, and then you mix it up and you make a very weird concoction where people are smokers, but then they'll work out in the gym also. The key is actually to be able to sustain 4 or 5 good habits to have a good life in general through the lifetime. And it's difficult to do that. But that's the thing about choice. If you have the choice to smoke and live a modern life, or drink and have a modern life, but you also have the choice to live a healthy life, which will effectively benefit you in the end. So every single thing that you said was so important. It's so important to have these conversations. So if we have to narrow it down to the 5 non-negotiables that people should do, from the conversation that we just had: do not drink alcohol and do not smoke. That's not good for your brain's health. Exercise. Does not matter what sort of exercise you do, but do exercise. Ensure that you're getting decent amount of sleep. That's also, I think, one of the things that I've personally read, and again, difficult to do in a lifestyle like this. If you have tendencies in your family where people in your family have genetic factors like diabetes or hypertension, then get yourself tested post your 30. And what would be the 5th thing that I'm missing?
Diet.
Diet. Oh, that should have been the first one.
Yeah. So actually, when long time back, there was something that we had to address to schools, and we had certain projects where we went into outreach. We went to Ladakh and Himachal, and address certain areas, and we had to actually give it to the school children. And how do you grab their attention? So we said, okay, you tell them, you eat this, you have high cholesterol rich foods, and then you will have atherosclerosis of your major arteries. It's so boring, isn't it, Suvarna? So what I did is that on one hand, we had a slide of a picture of pizza, and on the other hand, we had a picture of a cross-section of a major artery. Okay, a cross-section is when you do this. And an artery basically is a blood vessel where this blood is flowing, isn't it? So it's all red, it's blood. And the wall has to be nice and clean and there's blood flowing. But if the wall has so-called atherosclerosis, is where there is fat deposition, and the fat is yellow, right? And the blood RBCs, or the red blood cell corpuscles, what we get, we forget about the science. Are they basically the red cells? They get clumped. That's the clot. Okay. So in this round thing, you have the yellow sort of clumps there. And then you have these clumps of red things, which are compromising the lumen. Okay. So a normal circumference is say 5 centimeters. This is coming down to 1 centimeter. It's getting blocked. On this hand, we have a picture of pizza. Now, how does pizza is? Pizza is round, has nice white and yellow cheese all over. And then you have this, the tomato or whatever you have. So those are all red all over. So we say that, okay, you keep eating only this is what's going to happen to your blood sugar. So something like that. A visual impact.
Yes.
A visual impact, like, and I believe the young minds, I mean, you're also one of them. They're very, very impressionable. And actually they believe when they actually, you show what it means, they take it. And see, just imagine the bursting of crackers in Diwali. Children are not doing it. Children are not doing it. It is adults who actually, who have so much ingrained into their system that Diwali we have to burst crackers, that they sort of, and they keep wondering why are the children doing. Children are against it. So you catch them young, show them what it is. They will themselves will start eating healthy, and eating healthy habits when they're ingrained down, when they're little kids, they're not even, the high salt diet and these kind of processed feed and the sodas and all those things, they're more of a cult when you're looking at chips and Coke, and I believe they're being ingrained by the adults, and also the cultures, the mall culture, and it is a peer group. Oh, we've gone to a mall, we've sat there and had chips and cola. So get out of the system. In that, I think the adults have a major role.
I would now like to come to a question that I'm personally very curious about. We speak about consciousness a lot, and this is something that's been discussed in any case amongst scientists, amongst people who study brain scientists, amongst philosophers, amongst spiritual gurus. What is consciousness? And in one of your talks itself, I had read this term which says, I am my connecticome, which effectively is basically whatever my brain's networks and connections are, that's who I am as a personality. I'm eager to understand your view as a neurologist on human consciousness. What are your views on that, and where it's heading in terms of the advancements in science and technology?
So classically, the anesthetist will give you anesthesia so that you're knocked out, right?
Yes.
So that is one. Then you have you go beyond structure now. Okay, that is where you're bringing in the aspects of the psychological realm. That's where you bring in mind. See, this is where the complexity happens, that there is a brain and there is a mind. And there is a very subtle difference between these two, in the sense, what has happened in the mind and its problems is that at one point, people just thought it is psychiatry, psychology. This is a realm where everybody thought that, oh, it is, what your, it's all in your mind. It's all what you believe. It is basically belittling, saying that you are imagining things, which is changed. Now we know that every behavior has actually a connotation, has a basis why the person behaves. So even personalities have a basis, and definitely what can be called as consciousness has also a basis in the psychology and psychiatric terms. So therefore, with the advances in what we call as functional imaging, beyond structural imaging. Now, structural imaging is an MRI. Functional imaging would be something called a bold MRI, and you have several other things wherein your anger, love, affection, aggression, everything is getting mapped out into specific areas of the brain using this. And even what you would think, like, you have calm blue skies, or you have calm oceans, or the ocean waves, which are presented to you, and then they actually map out what's happening in the brain. What are those areas which are lighting up? And it may be individualistic. What lights up in my brain may be different from you. I may be reacting to a particular situation differently than you.
Yes.
So that's actually what are the personalities. So then they're also tracking out the tracks. So what is called
Wow.
as tractography. So this is being possible because of increasing advances in the biotechnological aspects, and
Yes.
also those Amazonian advances in the imaging field, where they're able to map out what you are. Now, said that, there are several ramifications to this.
Yes.
Looking at a personality and you're looking at psychology, especially
Hmm.
the clinical psychology and the several aspects of clinical psychology, now you know that in fact this is an old story, that you
Hmm.
can actually look into a criminal mind as to how the mind behaves and what the mind has done and is likely to do. And several of those psychologists employ a lot of scales and lot
Right.
of validated ways of understanding the human brain, and this is being employed, whether it
Yeah.
is CIA, FBI, or wherever it is. This is actually being employed to understand that human psychology and his consciousness as to
Hmm.
what has triggered and what is going to trigger us, what is the likelihood of what may happen, right?
Wow.
And this is being done because there is a correlation to a
Hmm.
person's behavior and how you can correlate to a structure or transmitters or whatever it is. And the
Right.
other thing is, there is, when you're looking into spirituality, now that
Hmm.
is probably the grayest area of all. We're still trying to
Hmm.
evolve, and there are a lot of people, whether it who are spiritual gurus or who are there, and they try to bring the bridges between Upanishads and the ancient scriptures, whichever religion it may involve. There are these ancient scriptures which actually try to bridge in again consciousness. You heard of
Hmm.
Krishna consciousness. There's so many other things which try to bring in this realm of consciousness and the power that to control the human behavior again. So if
Hmm.
you're looking at meditation, okay,
Right.
and yoga, the yogic practice. Now remember, Suvarna, yoga is not asanas, yoga is not breathing exercises, yoga is not just pranayama. Yoga
Hmm.
is way of life. And
Yes.
yoga is basically 8 basic tenets, which starts off saying that you live pure, like you have honest and pure thoughts. It starts off that way, rather than
Yes.
just breathing exercises. That's part of yoga. That's one
Yeah.
of those 8 tenets we have. So whether it's yoga, meditation, all of them are bringing in that consciousness concept and try
Yes.
to understand how to influence the consciousness for the ultimate outcome of making that person, in quotes, better in terms of
Hmm.
his own life, his illness, healthiness, and also interaction with society. So it's a healthy man and a healthy human being and a healthy society. So it is
Right.
that part of it. That's again where consciousness is coming up in a big way. Now, when you talk of connecticome, now
Hmm.
that's again a biomedical term which has
Hmm.
bridged in certain sciences. It's a translational term. I'm
Okay.
bringing in engineering, I'm bringing in
Hmm.
biomedical technology, I'm bringing in artificial intelligence, and I'm
Hmm.
also bringing in biology. So when I
Yeah.
bring all of them, that's where I'm connecting. And in fact, there is a diagram which says with matchsticks, you're bringing in all tracks. I'm connecting a zillion neurons and say that how they're connecting is what makes me. But then, yes, you're as individualistic as your own fingerprint. You're as individualistic your own iris, and you're as individualistic your own brain and connecticome. It is the individualization. These are broad specifics, but you are unique. So each person is unique, and that's
Correct.
where what you are. But I guess I must say as a last thing, this probably is your last question, though, Suvarna, is that you can think of all these huge scientific terms, and they sound very glamorous, and they're good places where the young brains can go, and even if you solve one question of A to B, they will get a Nobel Prize. Said that, though, I must also say that you are what you eat. And there
Yeah.
is a huge thing now that there is an axis between gut and the brain. There's a microbiome
Yes.
actually connect, and it is said that you are what you eat. So I think basic thing is you are what you do, you are what you eat. Essentially, you are the architect of your own destiny. So I think that's what it ultimately means, that you have the power to change for the better. And that for that, you need to believe in yourself.
I love that. There's so much to unpack there, ma'am. And I know that you are super busy, so I'm just going to ask you, what is your parting advice for young women out there?
Young women, I would say that you don't even need wing beneath your wings. You have the wings, you fly, you dream big, you can do it. And I guess I have to take that quote from the ex-president of United States. It's like they said, yes, we can. Yes, you can. You dream, you fly, you can. Believe in yourself.
Love that. Thank you so much, doctor, for sparing your valuable time
Thank you.
onto the show. Take care,
All
ma'am, and stay resolute. Thank you.
Bye.
I hope you liked this episode. For more content to empower your mindset, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and do share this with the resolute women in your life. Take care and bye bye.